Hello, everyone. So today we're meeting up. I'm really happy to welcome Nicolas, who works, well, he's better known as part of the duo Tremplin Numeric. And so Nicolas sent me a message a few weeks ago now. He said, listen, Leo, like a whistleblower, I've got some news to reveal. I've got something pretty huge to share with the public. I know, Leo, you're fond of traffic manipulation, which is quite true. It's something I'd started to look into where I'd found some interesting solutions, but being a link seller myself, I didn't push it any further. But anyway, Nico had some info that was pretty crazy in terms of traffic manipulation. And so today he's here to share it with us on my YouTube channel. Nico, listen, I'll give you the mic. The microphone. I'll let you tell us more about all that.
Hi, everyone. Well, thanks, Leo, for the invitation. So indeed, we have a technique that we've been using for over a year now at Tremplin Numeric. Now, we won't say we were among the first to manipulate traffic, but we were still quite ahead of the curve. And it's been years now that we've been manipulating traffic on our sites. To put things into context, what is traffic manipulation? It's boosting the metrics, especially on SEMrush. So when you sell links on a site, because that's all it's for, it's only for selling links, or else to make a client believe you're getting good results when you're a total amateur at SEO, that's also possible. And in reality, it's used to sell links because most net linking platforms, but also even selling links directly, advertisers are still going to base things on your traffic. If they look deep into your site, they'll see that the traffic can be manipulated. That's especially going to be the case if you rank for queries like login, my BNP account, or big queries. With large volumes that are manipulated from the start, which aren't really manipulated, but in fact, they're volumes that are highly searched on SEMrush. And being fifth for that search won't get you a single click in reality. But on the other hand, it'll boost your SEMrush traffic. So that's too obvious. We'll leave that aside. I think it's been over 2 years since we gave up on that because it's better than nothing. But any advertiser can see your keyword profile and understand that you're faking your traffic. The better thing is to fake low volume queries for keywords you already rank for. If you're first for a keyword, for example, best optician Paris, if best optician Paris has a volume of 500 clicks a month, you're going to fake it. You're going to bump it up to 2,000, 2,500. And actually, that's not obvious since the advertiser doesn't necessarily have the means. Well, if they know the sector very well, they'll realize it if they have a site themselves that ranks for that query. But on the other hand, if they're a bit outside the sector, they'll never understand that. They'll never understand that your traffic is manipulated as long as you stay reasonable. Same for brand names. It's good to always send a bit of fake traffic to your query, to your site's name. If your site is mysuperdog.fr, well, you send exact queries for mysuperdog.fr. And if you have 2,000, 5,000, let's say SEMrush searches, it stays credible, meaning an advertiser sees you have 5,000 for your brand search. So, well, you're a bit popular, people know you a bit, it's fine, it's credible. And for you, it gives you a lot of, you do that on several keywords and it boosts your traffic. So here, in fact, the techniques currently that are common today and that people, well, that are public knowledge, let's say, are to send traffic to Google search. So you're going to send, in fact, direct traffic. So it can be, well, if you already have some, and if you have a push base, it can be push, it can be all sorts of traffic acquisition, but the best known anyway, and the most effective is going to be doing pop under campaigns, right, Leo?
And yeah, I just continue on that. I'm just making a point because for me, it's exactly the technique I had in mind and that I tested. Very good technique on the brand. I'm 100% in agreement with you. For me, it's the lever I've often used because it's the lever where it can be supernatural. It's supernatural and it's quite often, it's underestimated. In fact, you can't know if a brand is really searched 5,000, 10,000 times. Maybe this webzine finally has a kind of underlying popularity that you don't know about. Sending traffic indeed on the keywords on which you rank first, it remains excellent. It's the best. And with small volumes, it's imperceptible and so on, that it's really the most powerful. It requires a bit more maintenance, but in general, when you found your keywords, it's top and you just have to rinse it. One small point at a stretch that you didn't mention, but which is not bad either, is people who make attempts to manipulate Google Suggest. You can also go surf them. I remember guys who had done big volumes on things like interior renovation plus a brand name like Alamia, or I don't remember exactly what it was called. Everything, it was doing 400,000 in volume. Everyone surfed them. Everyone tried to get traffic on it. I don't know. It's these little extra techniques.
There was web agency Opus Domus, also something like that at one point, that had done the 60,000, the 600,000. That's it. So that's a bit of a crazy thing, but well.
In the casino, we did several times 300, 400,000 without meaning to. Obviously, you see, and it's things that we've been used to doing. Don't hesitate to go surf the query. SEO consultant Leo Poitvin, which is gaining volume a bit more every day with pop volume that is pushing it.
Ooh, do you know the latest trendy SEO query? The latest trendy fake traffic query is Julian Jimenez scam next level. Really, it's not a joke at all. And besides, that's why for a week now at the time I'm speaking to you, there are many articles being published every day talking about that. Well, obviously publishers who want to surf on the fake traffic query. But then I'm jumping back in because it's still another very big tip that you can do and that I've done in the past and which works very well. It's actually publishing, it's actually doing fake traffic. So it's not for SEO. Well, it's not for SEO directly, nor for site publishing, but it's if you work in e-reputation. In fact, you do fake traffic on a query, for example, on the name of one of your clients, you can be sure that the site publishers from all over France will publish articles about you every day. And it works, it's certified and approved. So then it allows you to have, we know very well that in Google's eyes, even if they don't link to you, because they hope to sell links on those pages, even if they don't link to you, Google still understands that your brand name is frequently mentioned. Even better, and I probably shouldn't share this because it's not well known and I could have kept using it, but even better, send fake traffic to a phone number, because that's common knowledge. It's common knowledge that Google, especially for local Google searches, it considers that as a backlink. In fact, if a page mentions your phone number, it's as if a page were linking to your site, actually. So a little tip if you want to have sites talking about you.
That's why there's the whole local citation system, right? With brand citations, phone numbers, and so on. And it works very well for local directories and things like that.
Exactly right.
100%. Well played. I'll let you continue, Nico. This is a masterclass.
Another thing, one last little point we did too, if a client doesn't pay for the links and you want to, well, a bit like the story of Julian Jimenez, next level scam. But anyway, you send fake traffic to a query. You send fake traffic to a query that mentions your client's name, and you'll have articles being published all day long for that query.
I remember the last time you set up a little system, you got revenge on someone who had removed your links specifically. I checked but yeah, I don't know. I went back to the site of the people who had made the links and all, and the site was truly awful from an SEO standpoint. Every time you looked at it, you'd say, whoa, that's toxic. And so
we destroyed it.
It's actually very effective too.
Yeah, we blew up the site. We have a network now for non-payers. Honestly, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy to get hit with links from that network. Their sites flagged by Google. You can't even log in. You get the red Google alert, fraud alert when you try to access them. To get back to our topic of fake traffic, when you want to manipulate your metrics yourself, you have to use pop under ads. So you can use several platforms like Popcache, I think Pop Ads, ClickAdU. There are many networks that send pop under ads. Pop under ads are very handy because the user has no choice, really. The ad opens no matter what without them clicking anywhere. And so the advertisement will redirect you to a Google search results page. So you will be redirected to the Google search results just as if you had searched for it yourself. If you want to manipulate the search for SEO Consultant Nice, well, you type SEO Consultant Nice into Google, you copy the search URL, and you set up the advertisement, the ad on that specific search, so that by the end of the month, SEMrush takes, I think it's about 2 months now. It's longer than before. It's about 2 months, I think, if I'm not mistaken. For
me, it was 2.5 or 3 months. I don't remember.
Yeah, 3 months.
But indeed, it's one of the...
It changes over time. Actually, it changes. There are periods where it's faster than others. Well, in any case, never less than a month. I've never seen less than a month. And so here, presumably, we're looking at 2.5, 3 months. So you have to be patient. It's normal that when you start setting your first rhythms, what's a bit annoying is when you're trying to find the right settings and sort of not do too much, but at the same time do enough. It's very annoying because you have to wait 3 months before getting the results. And well, it happened to us too. Well, back then it was a month's wait, but I remember when we started this technique, we had no idea. We were really going in blind. We had no idea how to do things right. And actually, we'd find ourselves after a month with 300,000 queries, and that wasn't normal at all. And actually, it was too late. Once you've done it, it's too late. It's etched into SEMrush and your site. Well, there it is. It has queries and everything. People will know that there's a publisher who messed up at some point on it. So it's complicated to set up properly.
With time, it smooths out. Because actually, you hit the peak that SEMrush shows is usually the 12-month average. And so if you've sent, I don't know, let's say 120,000, well, actually it'll show 10,000 a month, and the next month it'll show 20,000 a month. If you keep up the same pace continuously, you see, and usually that smooths out the effect a bit. But then if you stop, it smooths the effect out again on the way down. But it means that, well, you still hit peaks of 500,000, and then the peak slowly goes back down, but it often takes a very long time to go back down.
It's the average.
It can end up with...
I didn't know at all. Didn't pay attention.
Yes, there's an averaging effect. Yeah. That's what I've seen too. Because actually, precisely when you try to send a volume that's really well controlled, like 10 or 12,000, well, actually, it starts by showing you 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, and so on as the months go by, And that means to get a very precise volume, it takes a long time before reaching the top.
And it's reciprocal too. That means when you stop sending, it'll continue to show for several months. Is that right?
I think in theory, yeah, that actually you're on the months. I think that afterwards, if it has no data for 3 months on a keyword, like if the keyword hit 300,000, and then it has nothing for 3 months, maybe it cuts it off completely. But I think you're on a gradual scale over at least 3 months.
Well, I don't have that info. We've never stopped code. We always stop. When we stop somewhat gradually. And well, to clarify a small point of clarification for those watching, it's that when you do research, when you do manipulations on keywords that you rank for, you should still follow, I think you were talking about that when you mentioned maintenance earlier, still sort of monitor after a month or two, because SEO rankings can change. And for us, when you do this on lots of sites at once, you often realize that there are competitors who've caught on, who rank ahead of you. And so actually you're paying for campaigns for them, really, because they're the ones winning more than you at this game. So, well, try to do this on keywords where you're kind of the only ones positioned, and long tail keywords that are really useless, that nobody's interested in. And you do that, and while even if it brings them in, you'll have competitors who will take advantage of it and position themselves when they see that it's getting traffic. But anyway, there's still a bit of maintenance to do. So for your brand name, normally for your site's name, no one should be able to rank above you normally. And then there's also another thing I'd recommend. One last tip on this before moving on to the big tip. It's to also not just do it for your brand name, but to do it for your brand name plus reviews, to do reviews plus your brand name, to do your brand name with a typo, with a hyphen, with something like that. That helps to muddy the waters a bit, and it also allows you to generate more total volume when you add up all the keywords you've manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So to get back to our topic, when you use pop ads, there's one downside, which is that it's not free. You pay to send requests. If you have one site to manipulate, it's fine. If you start having 10 or so and you want to do major manipulations, it can quickly become expensive again. To give you an example, well, we don't do it anymore because we don't have the time these days for all that. But at our peak, I think we were manipulating over 200 sites, and it was a nightmare to manage, and it was costly. And today, our strategy is completely different. In fact, we don't necessarily need it anymore. Actually, now we do so much volume. We have so many sites that, anyway, even if we wanted to, even a full-time guy whose job would be SEMrush manipulation consultant, well, he wouldn't have time to manage all our sites. So there you go. But in principle, I recommend it 100% to publishers just starting out, because when you start site publishing, for me, the only way to sell links quickly without waiting for sandboxes, without waiting for real traffic and all that, is fake traffic, fake TF. There's no other, I don't see any other possibility if you want to make money when you're starting out. And then later, even when you have site networks, let's say, no more than 10 sites, you absolutely must do this on your sites. You take a little time every month to do your manipulations, and it works like a charm. And I'm not saying you shouldn't think at all that it's a trick to scam platforms or anything. It works exactly the same way. Directly, when you send your sites directly to users, to advertisers, to qualify your sites, they run them through bulk Majestic, bulk SEMrush, and that's what they're interested in. So pop ads cost money, and obviously it can quickly cost you an arm and a leg depending on your list of sites. I had an idea that came to me now. So a little over a year and a half ago, we were starting to pay way too much for pop ads, and it was starting to become really unmanageable.
But it's really funny because people who start telling me, I'm starting to pay too much for pop ads. Usually they're people who've gone far with something, because either they're guys who've used pop ads on their site, like their whole site is being flooded continuously, massively. You guys were there manipulating traffic on 200 sites at once, when I discovered how to manipulate traffic, I was like, okay, it'll cost me €5 a month. That's fine. It's chill, You were in another dimension already. Like, we're already at several €100 a day on pop ads. How are we going to scale?
Yeah. I'd have to look at the history. I'd have to look at the history of the money spent on pop ads, but yeah, it's scary. Oh damn, I see it now. Yeah. Yeah, it was around 200. Yeah. We were spending several €1,000 a month, We must have been at 2,000, 3,000 euros a month, something like that, maybe even more actually. What?
And I don't know what price you pay for your traffic, but I know I remember paying, it was for 1 cent. I got 10 visits. So you see, we're still, when you start paying thousands of euros a month for €1 per thousand,
that's a lot of visits. Then there are plenty, there you go. Then there are plenty of parameters you can use in pop ads. Parameters, especially regional ones. Some people have tested other things. Some have tested with traffic that doesn't come from France there are plenty of techniques. I'm not going to get into the subject. I advise everyone to do their own settings, to test 10 campaigns, even 10 campaigns with different settings for the same query. And in the end, you clearly see what works and what doesn't, and how you can manage the best prices. There's also when the traffic isn't qualified enough too, it shows up less in SEMrush. I had done campaigns on really the worst traffic, the cheapest possible. It's less taken into account by SEMrush. I don't know why. And you have guys, maybe the guys are in the middle of Pakistan. They have such a crappy connection that they close before Google even sees it. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It cuts the thing off right away. Yeah.
And so we absolutely needed to find a method to decrease these costs, to reduce these costs. And what was the method? Well, we said to ourselves, we need to be able with a single pop ad to send not one Google query, but dozens actually. And to do this, we use something that you all know, I think at least 90% of those watching this video. It's using iframes. And so an iframe, it's a piece of code that integrates. It's like when you integrate a YouTube video in one of your articles. In fact, imagine that instead of integrating a YouTube video in one of your articles, you integrate a Google search result, which means that all the internet users who are going to look at your article will load, in fact, while being connected to, of course, their Google account, more qualified, but will load the search results page. Now imagine that instead of putting one iframe, so an iframe is you're going to see that appear. So when I talk about iframes, I'm talking, of course, about iframes that you set to display none, so that way you don't display them and internet users won't see it. You can also put iframes that are 1 pixel wide and 1 pixel long. It's going to be totally invisible and imperceptible to internet users. You can put 1, you can put 2, you can put 10. We can put a lot on each side. Keep in mind that it consumes a lot of resources, and that, for example, on a server, even on a good server, even on a shared server, even on a good quality dedicated server, starting from, in fact, the problem is going to be the internet user, not you. Is going to be the client side for the user, meaning that for me, for example, you can do the test on your end, but you'll probably do the test. Put 50 iframes on a page and open it with your Chrome browser. Even if your PC is a beast, you're going to start hearing the fans suddenly start spinning. It's funny because I had, for example, when I was doing these tests, I was on a desktop PC with the latest i9 processor at the time, something really, really powerful. And it never ran at full capacity. The fans never even started spinning because I had a very, very good water cooling system, for those who know. And despite that, when the page started loading, my girlfriend in the room next door, she'd say, "Damn, what's going on? It's the rocket. It's the SpaceX rocket taking off." But it works. It works. So if you do this on your own site, putting iframes on your sites, I advise you not to overdo it because you'll lose out. First, your page will take longer to load if you overload the iframes, which isn't necessarily a good signal to send either. And users will also, for some it lags, it clearly lags, meaning they won't even be able to scroll through the article because it'll lag so much.
That's it. If Nico can't open the article on his gaming PC, imagine someone stumbling onto it by chance on a pop-under on a phone from 2014. It's going to be brutal for them.
Exactly. So you have to be careful when you send that to your own sites. However, this method, we mainly and primarily used it with pop ads. I'm going to share my screen and then I'll show you a bit how it looks. It's very, very simple, really. You'll understand in a minute. The idea is that instead of sending an ad directly to a Google search, quite simply, you're going to send an ad to one of your sites that only serves that purpose. You get a .xyz domain name, something nasty, or a .ovh. And you're actually going to set up a page where you'll put all your iframes. It's as practical as it is effective and economical, because you can have just one single pop ad campaign running, and then you, with your iframes, update them as you go. You don't need to. When you change a URL on pop ads, for example, there's a moderation process that applies. At one point, I'm saying when we were spending thousands and thousands on pop ads, we still had hundreds of campaigns running at the same time, each with different names. You have to set them up right. You have to change
and it's
complicated.
It's unmanageable.
It becomes unmanageable.
The pop ads interface is abominable. If on top of that you've messed up your naming convention with the moderation time, it makes it not easy to use at all. And that's why everyone has built their own systems at home and bombards one page in general or one URL. And then they manage all that, whether it's redirection systems or data systems.
Exactly. So in fact, now I know there are people who have tried to do this, because I'd mentioned it around me. I talked about it a bit to people who I know manipulate their traffic. And in fact, some people had tried to do it, but they hadn't succeeded. Why? Because when you use an iframe by default, the Google search results page, when you put a Google search page by default in an iframe, it doesn't display. In fact, Google has blocked iframes, just like many websites block iframes to prevent other sites from reusing or displaying their content in an iframe. But there is a parameter that you have to add to your Google search result. I'll show you that in 2 minutes, which allows you to force this iframe and therefore make it work. So for me, at least, it's certified, tested, and approved. We've been doing this for over a year now, and it works perfectly. It's exactly the same thing as, in fact, it allows you to divide your costs on pop ads by 10 minimum. If you're determined, you can, we've done a maximum of 50 iframes on one page. When it's not on your site, it's fine. That is to say, if you do this on a third-party site, so a site dedicated solely to receiving pop ads, it's fine. You don't care. There you go. We set the page to no index. Google doesn't see it. And it's a domain name that doesn't interest us. Well, that doesn't interest Google. But anyway, don't do that on your own sites. On the other hand, I can only recommend on your own sites, once you start getting a bit of traffic, put iframes on your brand name already. You put 3 or 4 iframes at the end of, put 3 or 4 iframes on your pages for your brand name. It doesn't hurt. It's not going to overload your site. It's not going to slow it down. If you're afraid of slowing down Google's loading times, you can set them to, it's called defer, I think. And in fact, it's deferred. And so you can even have it load via JavaScript later. That is to say, you can make it so that for the user, the iframe only appears after 5 seconds of visiting your article, for example, which will really allow the iframes to be displayed so that Google doesn't take them into account for the site's slowdown time, and so that only the users who stay on your site and have already started reading the article see the iframe displayed. So this is really, let's say, painless for the end user, and it works. And so I advise you starting, well, if you have no traffic on your site, it's clear that it's strictly useless. From a certain point, from the moment you start having a bit of traffic, it's something I'd advise you to do almost systematically on your sites. And another thing I can advise you to do as well, if you're really cheap and you really don't want to pay for pop ads, and I know there are some here who might find this idea brilliant, but you can also embed iframes on sites that aren't yours. On some forums allow the insertion of iframes. You can very well, there you go, put threads on forums with little clickbait, get people to click and display iframes with 1 pixel wide, 1 pixel long. Nobody will notice, and you're going to make your iframe for free. Now, knowing that, as I told you, our technique is to divide everything. So I'll show you an example of how we do it. Dividing by putting 50 iframes on a page divides your pop ads costs by 50. And despite that, we continued for a long time to pay quite a bit for pop ads, because even divided by 50, it was still expensive for us. But there you go, dividing pop ads campaign costs by 50. I think no one here will say no. And frankly, once you've seen this video, I don't see the point in continuing traditional pop ads campaigns and paying for every single Google search. To me, it's completely outdated. You really should use iframes. You're going to divide your costs, and the final result is exactly the same. So here we have a search result. We have a basic search result on Google. And when you do pop ads, typically you're used to creating a campaign and sending it to this URL to actually manipulate the query. So local chat GPT in our example. So instead of doing that, we're going to send it to your own domain. So you send it to your domain and you're going to create pages. You can do page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, and so on with the list of your iframes inside. So here's how it looks. You just create a small HTML document like this and you put it here. So here, for example, we put variants like ChatGPT plus local plus ChatGPT, ChatGPT local with a space. The format is like this. So you put an iframe that is 0.1 pixels high and wide. You can also wrap it in a display none tag if you want. It's exactly the same. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there are some browsers that don't load the iframes if they are set to display none. It's precisely to avoid loading unnecessary resources. So that's why it might be better to leave it visible. Anyway, if you make it 0.1 pixels, no one is going to see it. If you set the page to no index, it's always better. And here are the URLs that you put in. So you have to remember to add this parameter here, igu equals 1, and also this one. If I'm not mistaken, anyway, you put it in this format. So google.com/search igu equals 1 and e equals and q equals, and you put your query and a plus sign instead of spaces. So these are the queries on Google. You wrap them, you put as many iframes as you want, knowing that after 50 iframes, the page will almost not load anymore. So the problem is that if the page doesn't load, Google won't take the iframes into account, meaning they'll load one by one. So normally the ones at the top will have a better chance of being loaded by the user than the last one, if the list is very long. But even if the list is very long, sometimes even the first ones have trouble loading and don't load completely. Why? Because the user's browser will lag so much that they'll leave the page before the requests, before the iframes can even load. So then you open it and you see what it looks like. It looks like a page like this. So it really goes unnoticed. So in this case, there are 3 tiny little things here that you can, which are the pixels of 0.5, 0.1 wide and high. I don't think you can go any smaller by default. So if you want to hide it another way, there are ways like display none. You can cover it up. You could easily put an image over it that hides everything anyway. There are 1,000 ways if those 3 little things bother you. And basically it looks like this in the source code. And here, every time I reload the page, you see it still takes a bit of time to load, especially since I have a very poor connection right now. Now the iframes are appearing and you can then look in the sources. You see right here. No, it's not here. Wait, I'll reload it. Now, if you look at the sources being loaded, these 3 searches here are actually the 3 Google searches being loaded by my site. And I think there it is. So local chat GPT, there's the second one. I don't know. No, that's wrong. Wait, the second one is there. There you go. You have the 3 requests right there. I'll zoom in a bit being loaded here. And so you can put as many as you want. I thought, why not try to use it for Discover? I asked a few people who do Discover on a regular basis. We don't do it enough. Anyway, we have a partnership with Guillaume Chauvin for everything related to the Discover management of our sites. It would take us too much time. And actually, why not try maybe with these iframes? If you put iframes to other articles on your sites, it might push the articles into Discover. Worth a try. In any case, there are lots and lots of things to explore with iframes. For me, they're kind of the 2 hidden things of the web. Well, the ones that are underestimated and almost never used. It's iframes and canonical tags. With canonical tags and iframes, there are hundreds of things to do, and I'm sure there are lots and lots of things to do that we have never had the idea to do. So there you go. You use this little method and you divide by 50. If you put 50 iframes, your costs for your pop under ad costs, and you can also add this little bit of code directly to your own site. If you have a site that gets traffic, you can do it. It works exactly the same way, and just be careful not to overload your site too much. So there you go. And stop.
Okay, thanks a lot, Nicholas, for this technique. It's a crazy technique. For me, it's funny because iframes typically in this kind of use, these are techniques that I'd already started to exploit. And I think it also works with the image source. I think if you put an image source equals, it should work too. And all that, I hadn't managed to get this far because actually the parameter you discovered, which is IGU equals 1 and the EI equals, that we leave empty. Well, those are the 2 parameters I didn't have, control over. that I hadn't managed to find, and that meant my iframes weren't triggered, that Google didn't take them into account. So there you go. Thanks a lot for discovering this parameter. It's really what changes everything. We're going to be able to blow up traffic on quite a few keywords, in my opinion, now.
I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. We're going to see all the French web traffic skyrocket.
We've dropped a nuclear bomb. We'll see what happens now. We're going to look at the damage, the consequences of all this. It should further improve the link buying and selling ecosystem.
Because I think the link selling platforms will be pleased with this little video. In reality today, link selling platforms, because we're link buyers too while being sellers as well. So if you're really conscientious when you buy links, which is complicated, you realize these kinds of things. It's that actually when you buy a link in a sector, you work for the local hairdresser, you have the hairdresser's search console, and you know that for hairdresser plus Charenton, the number of searches, and you see right away if it's faked in SEMrush or not. On the other hand, today, what should be done? What link selling platforms should do, because there are link selling platforms that complain about these kinds of practices, who complain about this kind of metric and TF manipulation. They only have one thing to do, really. Make sure to connect the search consoles of the sites, of the publisher sites. And actually, if you do that, it'll be a double-edged sword. That's to say, you'll both have qualified sites on your platform, but you won't sell anything anymore. There won't be any more link sales, actually. So if your business is link selling, you should actually encourage these kinds of practices. Now, it's up to you for your clients to be more conscientious. It's like, there you go. There are plenty of, in a competitive market with more and more of offers, it's normal to refine the demand and to look to spend more time qualifying your spots and so on. In any case, remove this. The problem is that today, the real sites will, and as Google updates happen, publisher sites are getting struck. If you're looking to buy links only on real sites that haven't been faked, well, concretely, those are $3,000 links on very large media outlets. So the link selling business actually relies on this, on the publishers who today still fake metrics and keep this sector alive.
It's true that I've bought quite a few links myself. I'm only a link buyer, for that matter. I'm still wondering why I'm letting you speak, you who's coming to wreck the link buying and selling market. But I've done some more big buying sessions recently, and it was stuff that I like doing. I like spotting people who manipulate traffic. It's good. It lets you have a bit of fun and have a job as a link buyer, knowing how to tell the difference between the good and the bad. But anyway, in any case, it's technical information. Everyone benefits from it. So I think it's important that Nico lets us speak and explains all this to us.
There's another thing we don't think about, but it's like the stories of whether a link that isn't indexed or that gets de-indexed continues to push and so on. Well, you're never sure of anything with Google. And in fact, at any time, well, there's nothing that says a site that doesn't manipulate. In fact, the site that manipulates its SEMrush queries before manipulating on SEMrush is manipulated on Google, actually. And there's nothing that says Google doesn't give more credit to a site that ranks for lots of queries with high volume than on a site that ranks nowhere. And besides, it seems, well, if you launch a new site starting from scratch, that it has nothing, that it has no keywords, no links. I think that it can't be seen negatively by Google to rank, even if in the end there are no clicks, because fake traffic unfortunately won't click. They won't click on your search.
Mm-hmm.
Although at the moment we're currently trying to work on something that could potentially fix that. But so users won't really click, but yet isn't your site still seen better in Google's eyes? I think it could be an opportunity, it could be a possibility. And what could make buying a link on a site? I think it's better to buy a link. As a link buyer, I'd rather buy on a site that has fake traffic, fake metrics, even without talking about even buying a link. I mean, for a client, than on a site that has nothing. A site that has nothing, it has nothing. It won't push to a site that has 0 links. A site that has 0 links and 0 traffic, whether it's fake or real, it won't push anything. Whereas a site that has fake traffic, at least it still has more of a chance.
Since we don't know, listen, potentially there's more of a chance. No, but I agree with you. Listen, in any case, it's a real pleasure to have heard you announce all that. It was a really crazy session. Do you have any other points you'd like to mention, if anything, about this technique, which is pretty crazy, and the discovery of the IGU equals one of the iframes and so on? Or a message you'd like to give to link sellers who are looking to manipulate their traffic when there's
a message for link sellers who want to manipulate their traffic. Well, they're totally right to do it. It's actually playing in the market that's offered to you. I also advise you to accept all kinds of links, meaning your sites are visually disgusting. Your sites are disgusting in terms of metrics. Your sites are disgusting in terms of fake traffic. But when someone offers you a casino article, you say, oh, no, not that. Casino is out of the question on my site. And there's even worse than that now. More and more publisher sites will flat out refuse articles that aren't related to their site. That just floors me. And sometimes it goes far. Sometimes there are sites that are, for example, in the phone niche, like bestsmartphone.fr. And if you send bestsmartphone.fr an article about a graphics card, they'll refuse it, saying, no, that's not my topic at all. But actually, if your topic is smartphones, then actually you won't. Look, just change careers, really. You don't get how it works. Don't sell links, just do an affiliate site. At least then I could understand. But don't sell links on your site. If your goal is to refuse articles on graphics cards when you're doing best smartphone, it makes no sense. So create a miscellaneous category on your sites. By default, WordPress has an uncategorized category. Uncategorized doesn't look good, but replace uncategorized, replace it with news, replace it with misc, replace it with around. For example, what I like is if I have a smartphone site, I call the category around the smartphone. And so in around the smartphone, there's graphics cards, there's casinos, there's Ukrainian escorts, there's everything related. But the goal is still to make money with your sites. No, but it's stupid. You're acting as a link seller. That's always actually you're a fruit and vegetable seller. You know, all grocers, all fruit and vegetable sellers also sell other things on the side that aren't fruits and vegetables, even if it's not. They sell olive oil, they sell Nutella, they sell side items even. Sometimes some sell toys or things like that. There you go. You have good offers. You have good purchases. Don't refuse to sell them. It's completely stupid and it won't ruin your site. No site has ever been ruined because you published, even with casino stuff, I'm very, very doubtful. Now, it might be different when you're doing AdSense. And even then, we've never had any problems. AdSense selling or publishing casino articles. But when you do it, hide it a bit on your site. I wouldn't put it, at most, I'd understand if you didn't put it on the homepage. But accept the links offered to you because you're shooting yourself. You're putting obstacles in your own way, really. That's the advice, really, that I give and that I see more and more. And knowing there are more and more updates, people...
And how much do you think casino links should be priced? Because I've seen times 10 and all. I don't know if that's a normal price for a casino link. Do you think times 2 or times 3 is already a fair price?
Well, actually, it depends. And there's one thing that annoys me on my sites. It's especially the ones I sell cheap, actually, because the ones I sell cheap at 10 euros, we sell lots of links at 10 euros per link. And it's usually sites that are just starting out. We like to put our sites on referrers as soon as they start getting real clicks. I mean, they refer to all the other platforms, of course. And actually, we put them up for sale as soon as they start getting a bit of traffic. But the problem is they sell a link, a casino link for 30 euros on it. That's times 3, actually. Times 3 at 10 euros is still only 30 euros. It's good, but it's annoying from a publisher's perspective. We're rational and it's a real shame because if this site takes off in the future and the site and the article price goes to 100, then 200 euros, it means we'll have published a casino article for 30 euros on a site where we could have sold it for much more. Knowing that casino buyers like some here are anyway, they'll buy the link on your site no matter what. I'd say that's true, but on the other hand, it's stupid to offer 10 times because 10 times 10 euros is still 100 euros, which isn't much for a link. And no, I'd say that beyond offering, it might be smart to refuse casino articles until your site has reached a certain threshold. And when your site reaches the threshold of a 100 euro link, for example, well, then you offer 2 or 3 times the price for the article. I think that's what we should do, but unfortunately, it's complicated to manage and we'll have to refuse all the offers and we don't like to refuse.